Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new weekly podcast that's actually going to be weekly this time, called The Futon Has Spoken. We're going to be talking about Survivor in this podcast, Survivor Ghost Island, to be specific. My name is Przzy. You can call me Przzy if you'd like, and I'm a diehard super fan of this show who just wants to talk about it for a little bit. I do want to apologize before we get into things. I am not very used to or experienced in doing a podcast by myself. I'm just by myself today. I originally planned on having two other people with me, but due to circumstances, they weren't able to make it. So it's just going to be me today. I'm going to talk about the Ghost Island premiere that just finished about a half an hour ago on CBS, and it was a very, very, very good episode. So I'm really excited to talk about this. As anything, before we begin, if you'd like to support the show, what we do, you can follow our social medias, check out our website if you're not listening to it from there, and I'll talk more about that at the very end. So Survivor Ghost Island has been completely released now. The first episode just aired on TV, and it was a fantastic episode, if I do say so myself. So Ghost Island is a season where past mistakes from previous Survivor seasons come back to haunt this new group of players. And I just wanted to say straight up, this is a fantastic theme for any season at all, because it basically has a lot of the charm of a returning player season without actually having returning players in it. You get to see all these new faces and new personalities that I also enjoy watching in Survivor seasons. But you also get throwbacks, as we're going to see later in these episodes, from previous seasons that obviously the show doesn't always make a lot of references to its past seasons unless it's a returning player season. So it's really, really nice to see stuff like this where advantages and idols that were misused in the past actually get like a little showtime, and they get flashbacks, which I'll go into later when that actually happens in the episode. We don't have. I know it was a 2-hour episode, but I'm gonna try to make this as quick as possible. I have a few notes here, and the list is not that long. But that was the Ghost Island theme. First of all, I just want to say that the art direction and the set design for this season is phenomenal. Everything looks really, really sweet. Ghost Island in particular, we'll talk about that in my little Ghost Island section I have on my notes here. But I just want to say everything about this season, this whole spooky aspect of ghosts haunting the past advantages, is really, really cool, and I love the direction they went with it. Especially, they didn't show it in the episode, obviously, but the full intro with all the players, how they used to do, that was released earlier today, and I watched it like 5 times because it just really, really fit the theme, and I really, really enjoyed it. So the season is going to start out no marooning in this season, unlike what happened in Heroes Hustlers, unlike what happened in Game Changers, unlike what happened in pretty much most seasons. I know Millennials vs. Gen X did not have a marooning. They kind of just showed up on the beach like these guys did. But it actually worked out really, really well. So they immediately start their reward challenge, kind of a reward challenge, and each team got they completely, no matter what, win or lose, they got some rice, which was a lot less than previous seasons. They each got a little water pan. I don't know exactly what that exactly what you could describe that as, and a machete. And the reward for this was really convoluted, so I might have trouble explaining it. I didn't really take good notes. I'm kind of just saying what I remember happening. But the challenge was pretty simple. You had 2 runners go out, come back, and then they had to get keys, dig them up, and then they had 2 people solve a slide puzzle. But the twist was that each tribe, without talking to each other, had to select leaders. And Malolo, that's the name, the Orange Tribe selected Brendan, the phys ed teacher, and Purple selected Chris, who was the male model. And they got to pick who would be doing the running for their team and who would be doing the puzzle. So Brendan makes some pretty good choices. He picks Michael. I don't see anything wrong with that. Michael is the 18-year-old real estate agent. We'll talk a little bit about him in his own section a bit later. And he goes out there and tears it up when he when it's his time to run, he completely he exhausts himself. You have to go out 3 times. So the first 2 times he is hightailing it out there. He's sprinting. He's going all out, and then he loses all of his energy coming in on the 3rd lap, and that was a bit funny to see him kind of like struggle to get through the. It wasn't fun to watch him. Obviously, I felt kind of bad, but it was kind of funny watching him stumble around in the high step after just like completely tearing up the course, and he went fast. And then I think that was a pretty good choice to pick Michael. He at least on first impressions, he seems like one of the most physically fit people. For an 18-year-old, he does look like he is like 27, so that always helps. And then for Navati, that I didn't say that earlier. That is the Purple Tribe's name, Navati. Chris selects. Who does he? He selects Sebastian, and Sebastian also tears it up on the course. Except he doesn't fall off at the end, unlike Michael did. He's very stable throughout this whole challenge, and he ends up getting a quick lead on Michael. Now the interesting twist part comes in the puzzle. So for Malolo, Orange Tribe, Laurel is doing the slide puzzle. She does look like she's a grad student at college, or I don't know if I think she already graduated. I'm not too familiar, but she does look like she's pretty smart. Like I don't know, just based off first impressions. And then Chris picked Des for the Purple Tribe, and she has a nice little confession about how she does not really know how to do puzzles, which is foreshadowing the events that's about to happen. So the twist with the puzzle is that if the leader feels that they're not going to win, he can pull the plug early and give up and not lose their fishing gear. I also didn't mention that earlier. Each tribe gets fishing gear unless the other team finishes the slide puzzle in the time limit. So Chris is watching the challenge. So is Brendan. They're both eyeing it up, seeing who is going to be. Seeing the state of their puzzle makers. Laurel, I don't know if anyone is familiar with slide puzzles, but there's like a specific way to do them where you start in the top. You start in the top left corner, you kind of get that top row all figured out, then you get the second row figured out, and then you get the far left side figured out, and then the pieces, or the remaining pieces will kind of all slide into place. You can't just keep sliding them all over just hoping that it fits. So Laurel's clearly doing that, so she knows how to do a slide puzzle, and Des is not. So I think it probably made the most sense for Chris to. He ended up pulling the lever, salvaging his fishing gear, which was a very smart call. I think. I know the other tribe. See, this reward was super weird because they both get fishing gear, but like not quite if they don't lose, and then the winning tribe, if you give up, also gets eggs and flint or something like that. The reward kind of, you need like a chart or some kind of like Excel sheet in order to follow who got what depending on what circumstances happened. But I mean, it was a pretty entertaining challenge. It was it pretty much went down probably the way the producers really wanted it to when it comes down to it, because they had the big decision being made of to pull the plug and quit the challenge, like as the sand timer was slowly ticking down, almost out. So I feel like that probably went as well as it could have. Not necessarily for the Purple Tribe, because they probably could have done a bit better on the puzzle. I know it's not necessarily Dez's fault or Chris's fault. They don't know each other. They don't know their strengths and weaknesses yet. But what am I trying to say here? I have no clue. But that was the reward challenge. It wasn't really a reward challenge. It was more like a marooning, but they don't get to like go crazy on the boat and grab anything that they want. So we finally get to watch the tribes go on the beach, and we check out Malolo first, I believe, Orange Tribe. And going into this season, Malolo was my favorite tribe. All my favorite, not all of them, but a majority of my favorite players were on Malolo. Going into this, I really liked, I really liked Donathan, I really liked Jacob, I really liked Gonzalez, I really liked Brendan. Obviously, we share a name, so I was kind of forced to like him, but even then, he seems like a really, really awesome player and guy. I also really like Laurel, and I really liked James. So I was like pretty happy with the makeup of that tribe. There was really no one on the tribe I disliked, honestly. In preseason, there was really no one in this cast that I necessarily disliked, I don't think. But we start with Malolo, and we have a fantastic scene of I like to call Jacob's footwear dilemma, where Jacob's kind of washing his feet off in the water, and he accidentally takes off his shoes a bit too close to the waves, and they take him out to ocean, and he's missing some shoes now. Jacob is now that's probably the closest Jacob will ever get to being Austin Taylor from the Pearl Islands, not having shoes or anything. But to make matters worse, see, Jacob, I was rooting for Jacob. I really like Jacob. I still really like Jacob. He seems like a very, very nice guy. He seems like someone I would actually like genuinely hang out with in real life. So Jacob, if you're watching this, hit me up. But Jacob has this whole string of just one bad decision after another, which I can justify him for on a lot of them. But some of them are a bit weird. I really, really like Jacob as a character, though. I think he's fantastic. He's not perfect by any means, obviously, but he reminds me of how I would play if I got out there. I don't think I would do as much crazy stuff. Maybe I would if the pressure was on, but I really, really like Jacob. So we'll get into some of the crazy stuff that goes on with him. He decides that he kind of brings it up, in just an open conversation. I wonder if there's any idols, which is a very valid question. I'm not necessarily sure that I would bring it up in open conversation if I was there, because I'd rather not be the first person to bring up idols. Maybe he wasn't. We obviously can't see everything that happens, but just mere moments, or what seems like mere moments after asking if they think any idols are out there, does he not leave and go into the woods to look for an idol while announcing it to his team? We're not talking like Tony Game Changer style, where he like screams he's going for the idol and sprints off into the woods because he's Tony. He just goes, I wonder if there are idols out there. Yeah, I'm gonna go exploring. And then everyone huddles up and is like, yeah, I feel like Jacob's not the person we need to have around right now, which is a totally valid point. So I was just I don't even know how to describe this. It was just a very unfortunate play by him. I would have to imagine that probably he brought up idols and then went off exploring a bit later, and they kind of just edited it to make it seem like he went immediately after. But I don't know. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But I don't believe that looking for the idol was the right play at that exact moment. So also what happens after he comes back from unsuccessfully looking for the idol, which I didn't think at this point there were any out there. I firmly believed that everything was going to be on Ghost Island, only to be proven wrong in this later half of this premiere, actually. But Jacob decides that also this is not a fantastic decision, but this is a very astute decision that I think kind of looks stupid from a hindsight perspective, but he kind of dumps out the rice into his sock and then like pours it back, which is kind of really gross. But I don't blame him, because the rice looked different compared to other seasons. I know Jeff specifically mentioned that like there's less rice this time. Look at it. It's in this bottle. It's not in like a bag or a bin or whatever it is in past seasons. And it's not like there hasn't ever been an idol clue in the rice to begin with. In Philippines, there was that whole fun scene of Russell Swan looking for the idol. And it's like, I wonder if I'm walking right past it, it's just going to flash on the screen, and it does, and it's on the top of the rice. So I don't... It wasn't a bad call. It was definitely a bad call to dump it in his sock, I think. That he was wearing not minutes before he did that. But... I don't think it was a bad call necessarily to look in the rice for a clue, because as we've seen it happen before, it's not out of the ordinary, especially because the bottle it definitely looks like something that could have it in there. So I'm not faulting him for that. I am faulting him for dumping it in his sock. I guess there's probably nowhere else to put it, but I'm sure they had like that pan pot from earlier. If that was around, he could have maybe used that. Maybe he could have just like shaken it up, see if like the note or the idol, whatever would have been in there, kind of like floats to the surface or whatever. Like if he shook it a little bit. I don't know. Maybe he tried that. So that is this string of Jacob blunders. There's a big one that happens later that I'll talk about, and I know I'm going to talk pretty bad about Jacob, but going into this, he was, I mean, still, honestly, he's still probably one of my favorite players this season, even though he's already voted out, unfortunately. But I just love this guy. Like and I'm not trying to be mean or anything to him. I'm just trying to recap what I saw, and I really enjoyed watching him on this show, and I think I really enjoy like talking to him in person if I ever get the chance. So this happened before, but when they were introducing themselves, Michael, the 18-year-old real estate agent, tells his tribe that he is 23, which normally if I heard like an 18-year-old trying to pass off as a 23-year-old, I'd be like, oh, absolutely no way. But look at Michael. Look at this man. This man absolutely looks like he could be 23 or older. Like, I know, I think Julia from Co Wrong actually lied about her age. I don't think they showed it, but I think she said in like on a tweet or some kind of interview that she actually lied about her age, but it didn't play into the season. She ended up telling Michelle and friends the truth anyway. But imagine if Will Wall from Millennials Gen X came out and said he was 23. He has the voice of a 23-year-old. I don't think he has not the looks, but he has like the long teenage hair, and I don't know, he kind of still has a baby face. I mean, I still have a baby face, and I'm 19, so I can relate to that. But I think it takes a special kind of person to lie that you're 4 years older, or 5 years older than you actually are, because I don't think there's any possible way Will could have pulled off lying that he was 23, but Michael can, because he looks like how he does. That was pretty fun. I can't wait for that to probably backfire on him. I imagine it probably will, when Jeff speaking of Will Wall, imagine if Jeff they get a reward, and the reward is like a nice barbecue lunch with chicken and beer or something, and he goes, "Now Michael, you know you can't drink, right?" And everyone's just like, "What?" I really hope that happens, even though I doubt Jeff would do something that drastic, especially for something as trivial as like a reward. But that was a little quick tidbit about Michael. And then over on, I guess we can stay in Malolo. I'll skip this bullet point and move on one. Laurel and Donathan have a nice little moment where I guess they kind of align. They didn't really mention it any later in the episode, but Laurel and Donathan kind of talked together, and they said that they were interested in working with each other. Interested in, I don't know if they were actually true about it. I don't think Laurel had a confessional about it right after to reinstate her thing. But Donathan certainly had a couple confessionals about how he was very interested in aligning with Laurel because she was unlike people that he meets in Kentucky. Which, I mean, I don't really know what to say about that. It's true, I imagine, but probably could have been worded a bit differently. Donathan also just kind of briefly mentions the fact that he's gay, which is nice. It wasn't like a big grand reveal. It was more of just like a passing comment to Laurel about how he can't find a man in Kentucky. I love Donathan, by the way. He's also one of my favorites of this season. I'm sure I'm going to talk about him quite a bit, especially when it comes to the second immunity challenge. But we're going to switch on over Beaches. Not too much from the rest of the cast of Malolo before the first immunity challenge, because I mean, Brendan got most of his content from the first challenge of him being the leader. James is really sticking to the second half of this episode. Same with Jenna, even though Jenna didn't get really much to begin with. And Stephanie has a big part in the second half of this episode too. But other than that, there wasn't really too much coming out from the squad on Malolo. I know Libby got like no content in all this episode, unfortunately. But she did get a few lines here and there, but no confessionals or anything drastic. But switching over to Navati on the first half of this episode, this big episode, the Florida boys, they okay, whoops! I accidentally hit the space bar on my my keyboard, which paused the recording. So, as I was saying, the Florida boys kind of start out their little duo alliance, their dream team, being Sebastian and Chris, both from I guess the southern Florida area. I'm not too familiar with Florida, but I know Chris said he was from the Florida Keys. I don't remember exactly where Sebastian was from. Sebastian also gets the cool nickname of Seabass, which I think is a pretty sick nickname. I don't know why. I didn't hear anyone even like mention that in preseason. How like his name is Sebastian, he's a fisherman. We should call him Seabass. I thought that was pretty cool. I think Dominic gave him that one, or Dominic, as me and my roommates like to call him, because that's how his name is spelled. But so the Florida boys kind of make a little tight duo. Unfortunately for them, they're on a tribe of 10. They need a lot more than 2 people. But it does seem like they did kind of increase their numbers a little bit. Although there are a few scenes of Wendell and Dominic and Bradley kind of conspiring against them a little bit. But it's also, I don't know, some other stuff happens later that's a bit confusing regarding Dominic. Speaking of Wendell, though, Wendell has a nice little moment that I really liked about him kind of pursuing his dreams as a furniture designer. I really like Wendell, too. Wendell's one of my favorites so far, also. I really like the fact that he looks like Donald Glover is completely secondary to how likable he seems to be on camera. He seems like a really, really genuine guy. I really liked his story about how he, worked with his father and then decided to start designing his own furniture. I don't know too much about designing my own furniture. The last job I had, I built furniture, like I built patio furniture and grills and stuff, but designing furniture is not something that I know too much about. So I don't know if Wendell is like a big furniture designer. I know he's based in Philly, so I'm not too certain if he's more local. I'd imagine he's more local and not like a big name furniture designer, or else I feel like they would have made a bigger deal about it than they did. But that's really all that happens. The Navati tribe, obviously, since Malolo went to tribal 2 times this episode, Navati really got no content outside of Dominic and Chris necessarily, because looking at the list, Angela had absolutely nothing, Bradley had absolutely nothing, Chelsea had even more nothing than nothing, which is I don't know, hard to do. Chris had quite a bit. Chris and Dominic, as I said, had probably the most out of the Navati tribe. Des had a little bit. She was the puzzle maker. She was like she had a couple. She talked a little bit about how her puzzle making skills were not the best previously. And then other than that, Kellen had a few confessionals, but nothing drastic. Same with Morgan. Morgan gets a bit more relevance later. Same with Des, kind of. And Sebastian kind of was just there as like Chris's wingman. But we're going to get to the first immunity challenge, where this was pretty cool. It reminded me a lot of the carts from Guatemala and Heroes, Healers, Hustlers. Except they didn't ride in them. They had to stack blocks in them and pull them, which seems even harder to do. But the challenge was not necessarily the most eventful. They tried to they had to load the things in the cart and pull them. Malolo's kind of fell out while they were pulling it, so they lost a lot of time on that. And then while they were building the puzzle, which was a cool like 3D block, Jonathan was trying to Jonathan kind of figured out what the puzzle was, because each side had a corresponding background color and a foreground color, so they could use that to their advantage trying to put the puzzle together. And he was trying to tell them, but Gonzalez would not let him. She's like telling him to, or she was not only telling him, but telling pretty much everyone to shut up and let one person talk at a time, which, you know, not necessarily the worst thing to suggest, just maybe not as, I kind of forgot that she did that when they mentioned it later in the episode, but I didn't really think it was that crazy. But I guess it could seem annoying, or maybe it was worse than we saw. But Navati ends up winning the first immunity challenge. They're safe. And this part of the notes list is called Jacob's 6,000 IQ play, because he decides, or I guess they find out before the challenge that one of the members of the losing tribe is going to Ghost Island, and they would be safe from the vote. So Jacob is really, really cocky after the challenges ends, about talking all about how we're the best tribe ever. We're full of the best people. We can beat them any day. One challenge does not set us apart, which is like the Dr. Mike Statue of Liberty speech from Heroes, Healers, Hustlers, except it actually works. A question mark. So his 6,000 IQ play was that he would act cocky so that they would send him to Ghost Island, thus making him safe from the vote, since he was a pretty easy first vote based on what has happened so far, which I admire. He also said he wanted to find out what Ghost Island was. He's a huge super fan, which I'm actually very glad that he was sent instead of someone who isn't a super fan. I'm not really sure off the top of my head who in the cast isn't. I think most of them are. But I think it was a lot better for the season that the first person sent to Ghost Island was a super fan who understands, or who knows about the past advantages and stuff, and who knows about because you'll see when he gets to Ghost Island. I guess we'll just kind of transition to that. When he gets to Ghost Island, he's like, "Yo, is that the China immunity idol?" I don't think most people would have picked that one out. I probably wouldn't have either. It looked like the Thailand one to me, honestly, but I don't really remember what that one looks like either. But he's like, "Yo, these are all the snuffers," and I guess now we're on Ghost Island, so I'll talk about it. Ghost Island looks absolutely beautiful. Sleeping under all the snuffers in that tent, being surrounded by all these idols and immunity idols that have been, or tribal idols, individual immunity idols that have been used. It's just, I would just love to visit there. I hope they don't take them all down. I guess they are returning the items to their rightful owners, they said after. But I'd love to go there and just check out Ghost Island. I know that's probably absolutely not possible in the slightest. But or how Ghost Island works is basically there are 13 or so urns. I'm guessing there's going to be that many visits to Ghost Island. You break the urn. If you break the right urn, I'm assuming you have to go left to right. They didn't really say go left to right, but that's what they were doing. So maybe you could break whatever you want. And they just chose that one. But you either get challenged to a game of chance where you have to pick 50-50 between a key to an advantage or losing something valuable, or you get nothing. So Jacob gets a chance at a game. He gets to wager his vote at the next tribal council. So if he loses this 50-50 game of chance, then he can't vote at the next tribal he attends. But if he wins, he gets an advantage in the game. Which, in hindsight, or the results oriented, it's not even an advantage because it's not for him. But he ends up picking. He gets the correct choice, and he gets the legacy advantage from Game Changers, which I thought was really, really cool. I knew it was going to be on the season because they advertised they advertised this. They advertised the effing stick. They advertised James's idols and Eric's immunity necklace as the 4 big ones, or I guess 5 big ones, because they always whenever they did advertisements for Ghost Island and all the mistakes, the mistakes they always marketed were Eric's immunity necklace, James's idols, Sears legacy advantage, Lauren's shell, and I already said this one, but I just completely forgot what it was. Oh dear. Oh well, whatever. So he gets the legacy advantage, but it's not for him. He has to give it to someone on the other team, and he picks Morgan for reasons. Not really sure what they are, but Morgan now has the legacy advantage. He said that she was pretty chill and down to earth, which I guess makes sense. She does seem pretty chill and down to earth based on her screen time so far. But it's not for him, which really doesn't help at all. But I thought it was really cool how they had like it was literally Sierra's legacy advantage. It had her and Sierra's name on it. They showed flashbacks to Game Changers of what happened to it, which I thought was like the coolest part. They'll do it later. When Dominic ends up finding a crispy advantage from a previous season. But yeah, so Jacob basically just doesn't get anything out of his Ghost Island trip. He gets a potential ally in Morgan, but he has to make it to a tribe with her. Which, when Jacob's already on the bottom, it's not looking too great. And it didn't end up working out in the end for him. It does end up working out well for Stephanie, but we'll get into that a bit later. So, that's really what happened on Ghost Island. I thought it was a fantastic introduction to it. We got a very recent advantage. So I don't think they were going to pull off something crazy like Eric's Immunity Necklace or James's Idols right off the bat, because newer viewers probably wouldn't recognize them as well as they would recognize something that happened 2 seasons ago in Game Changers. And it was also pretty big. It was also about decisions. It really followed the point of decisions because of what happened to Sierra when she did it. But that is Jacob's journey on Ghost Island. We'll talk about what else he does on Ghost Island a bit after, because we are getting into our first tribal council. So before tribal, Gonzalez and Donathan. I was gonna say Dominic. Donathan are the 2 targets. Donathan because he's physically weak and Jacob's not around to be the physically weakest. But Gonzalez because everyone noticed her being super. Not necessarily bossy. I can't think of a great word to describe it, but her like cutting off people trying to help the puzzle makers in the challenge. I guess was not the best look for her. They also think she's a strategic threat. So the 2 candidates that it's most likely going to be are Donathan or Gonzalez. And they go into tribal. They talk about strength and what strength means, which is always a fun conversation to have at tribal, because it's really just people dodging the question, where Jeff's always like, do you want to keep the tribe strong? And they're like, yeah, of course I want to keep this tribe strong, but strong is subjective, Jeff. You don't really know what strong means. It's different for every person, which is absolutely fair. And then the most extra part of the episode goes to this moment where Gonzalez just stands up and like walks over to Michael and starts whispering in his ear, which then starts everyone whispering in their ear except Donathan. And like, I thought it was very interesting, but I don't think it was. I thought it was like way too extra. Because I don't know, like I think live tribals like that work well. Sometimes. I think they worked well. Malcolm's double idol play in Caramoan is a fantastic example of a live tribal. I think that the double tribal, where Malcolm was voted out in Game Changers, is a fantastic example of a double tribal, even though I didn't like the result very much because I like Malcolm. But this just seemed unnecessary to me, specifically because it was also the Ben Bomb episodes where Lauren was voted out or the first Ben Bomb where Lauren was voted out in Heroes Heroes Hustlers. It was an absolutely fantastic tribal, like, that was live, because it was about all these characters that we knew throughout different parts of the season, and like all this tension, all these alliances were building up to this moment where the wrench in the plan, or the wrench was thrown into the plan, and they had to improvise. Same with Game Changers. It was all these players that we knew. It was early in the season, but all these players that we knew, because they're returnees. We saw all these storylines that we knew. We saw a wrench was thrown into the plan with JT kind of like defecting, and they were trying to get Haley to defect, and it was beautiful, even though the final result was not. And also Malcolm's tribal, or the double idol play from Malcolm, was fantastic because all these characters that we also knew, because it was later in the season. But this was the first episode. We don't know any of these people. We don't know like all the different relationships they formed, because they only had like 45 minutes at this point to show it to us, and they had to fit in challenges and stuff in the beginning intro. So like the only thing that we really knew about this tribe was that Donathan was on the outs, but he had an alliance with Laurel, but that really didn't come into play at all. We knew that Michael and Brendan wanted to get rid of the weak people, except they ended up voting for Gonzalez anyways. We didn't see why they had like a change of heart that way. And I don't know, it just seemed really, really awkward to me. Personally, I thought it was a great first episode. Like, I don't think this tainted the episode in the slightest. It was just like because the rest of the episode was really, really good. That was just like my only complaint, is that it just seemed really, like, I guess extra would be the best word I can use to describe it. It just seemed way too extra. But I really liked that Gonzalez. I really respected that Gonzalez went down with a fight. Like, she got blindsided anyway, but she did not kind of just like sit there, even though she could sense that Tribal wasn't necessarily going her way in terms of discussion. She didn't sit down there, or she didn't sit there and wait for it to happen to her. She went up and made an active effort to try to divert some votes away from her that she had an inclination that were coming to her, which I really respect. So Gonzalez was voted out, and we shift over to the next episode, where Jacob returns from Ghost Island. And last bullet point was called Jacob's 6,000 IQ play, where he went from Ghost Island. His plan coming back from Ghost Island, I have dubbed the 600,000 IQ play coming out from Jacob, where he decides that instead of telling the tribe about Ghost Island and lying and saying he didn't get anything, or telling them he did get something and it was for the other tribe, which are both probably better options, he decides that no, I'm going to tell them what Ghost Island is, like the concept, obviously that's fine, and then I'm going to tell them that I got an idol from Ghost Island, and it's a fake idol that he just made while he was there. So that was a very interesting choice, because his logic was that if they thought that he had an idol, they wouldn't vote for him, because he said he would play it no matter what, but it was actually fake, so they wouldn't vote for him anyway, so he wouldn't have to play it and he wouldn't go home. But I don't, it's just, I could understand, but I feel like the better play would have been to say that he either didn't get anything, because you have to play a game of chance to do it, and then he didn't get anything, which could be true, but I don't think they would believe that, because Ghost Island is new and they don't know what's on there. So probably the better thing would probably be I got to mess with the other tribe. Like, he doesn't have to say gave the legacy advantage to Morgan, obviously, which he ends up doing later anyway, but he could at least say, like, oh, I got to block one of their votes, the next tribal council, or I got to give one of the other tribe a clue to the hidden immunity idol on their beach, so it doesn't affect our tribe at all. And, like, I had to do it. Like, I couldn't, like, opt out of it or whatever. I feel like that would probably have been a better call than to create a fake idol, which gets snooped out by Brendan, like, brilliantly, as I might say. Brendan has... I'm a bit biased, obviously, because he and I are both named Brendan, but his game sense, at least as we saw in the first premiere, was like flawless. He immediately like realized that Jacob's idol that he had is not real, because he didn't have the paper, and he knew it because Jacob was such a big super fan that there's no way he would not keep the paper and like leave it on Ghost Island, especially because the next person who goes there can probably find it and realize that he has it. Like, I don't know, this probably wasn't the call. So, tip for anyone going out into Survivor: if you are making a fake idol, make sure you have a piece of paper saying that it's a real idol, even if it's not. Because at least Dominic later in this episode like has that one locked down. Jacob did not, unfortunately, and it wasn't anything he could do about it. Obviously, he didn't have another idol paper to plant on it. So I think at that point, the best call, or the best course of action would be to just not make a fake idol and show it off to people. Like, maybe you can make one. I'm all for making it. Just don't display it to everyone. Maybe keep that one hidden, tucked away for a rainy day, in case you need it a bit later. Which might if he could have played it differently, might have saved him on the second vote. Also, I didn't mention this earlier. Another thing that he did was instead of telling us in confessional that the reason he acted so cocky to get sent to Ghost Island the reason that he acted so cocky was to get to Ghost Island. He decides to tell everyone in front of Jeff, which I guess is good TV. But now they know your plan, like their team, and they're never going to send you again because they know you want to go there no matter how cocky you act. So I feel like he probably... I don't know. Obviously, it's really, really hard for me to speak for these people because I wasn't there. But I feel like a good course of action might have been to act like really, really offended that they were sending you there. So maybe they would like, oh, let's mess with them again. Let's send them again. But no, that's just me. Maybe Jeff really like prodded for that response because I know he might do that. So over on Navati, Dominic is looking for an idol in the dead of night. He's looking Ben Bugen style, and he happens upon Andrea's idol from Karamoan that she got voted out with. Which actually, before this, I didn't know that Andrea was the first female to ever get voted out with an idol in her pocket. I guess it makes sense because I don't know. It just never crossed my mind that she was the first female, especially because she I don't know. The idols have been around for a while, and she got voted out in Karamoan with it, which is like nearly like 12 seasons after the modern idol was introduced. So that was pretty interesting. I didn't know that, but now I do. And I really liked how they showed, obviously, footage from Andrea getting blindsided. That was really awesome. I love how all the idols are relics of the past. I know a lot of people, especially people on the subreddit, which I don't necessarily agree with most opinions on the subreddit, but I like to be respectful about it. I know they are not that big of a fan of all these twists and idols and all that, but I'm personally completely fine with it. Like, I'll enjoy the season anyway, and I really like that since there are a lot of idols and twists and advantages in the season, they're all callbacks to past seasons, and they'll all show footage and stuff, I'm assuming. So that's really awesome. I'm a really big fan of that. So now, using this new idol, Dominic decides that Jacob's 600,000 IQ play was not enough for him. He decides that he needs to go for the 5 million IQ play. So he wants to buddy up with Chris because he knows Chris was targeting him. And he goes up to Chris and says, "Hey, let's match. Let's see if we can work together." And Chris says, "Do you have an idol? Because if you had an idol, I'd greatly consider working with you." Which is a good, kind of like seems like a cocky move to pull because I don't know if Chris was like in a better position than he was, but I feel like I don't know. That's just what he did. And so Dominic tells him he doesn't have an idol, but then like a bit later, he's like, "Actually, I do have an idol. Do you want to see it?" But he makes a fake idol, but he puts the paper that says he has an idol with the fake one that he shows Chris. It was weird. Like, that was almost as convoluted as the reward in the beginning of the episode. So what he wanted to do, I'm assuming, is... But he told Chris he didn't have it, but then he realized, I want to work with him, but I don't want him to know that actually the real idol. So he makes a fake one, puts the real idol paper in the... he puts the real idol paper with it. Then he shows it to Chris. Chris acknowledges the paper that it's real. I don't... because the thing is that if he has the paper that says, like, this is a real idol, Chris knows no matter what, he has a real idol. Whether or not this specific one is the real one or not, he has the paper. Like, you can't like, necessarily fake the paper that says it. You know what I mean? Like if that happened to me, I guess, I don't know why I'm putting myself in the situation, but like, if someone showed me an idol and they showed me the piece of paper that said this is a Hidden Mutant idol, I'd be like, okay, so you have the idol. Not necessarily that this one specifically is the idol, just that you have one. I don't know. But I don't really... he's playing like 8D chess. Jacob's playing 8D chess too. They should play together, except Jacob, unfortunately, is not with us. So the second immunity challenge rolls around. This one was pretty cool. I like these ones where they have to play basketball at the end, basically. But you have to like dive for buoys. And the highlight of this challenge was that James, the really beefed up Asian, I don't know exactly what his job was, but he was an athlete. He's like a track athlete in college. So he's ripped too. So he's not necessarily like someone who can't do physical stuff. He just couldn't dive. Like he couldn't get like 3 feet underwater, which was really hard to watch because I was rooting for James, you know. But we had a very cute Suri on the balance beam moment where Donathan is like, oh, I can't do it either. And everyone's like, you can do it, Donathan. You can do anything. And then Donathan like jumps in and he undoes the buoy and he's so happy with himself and everyone's so happy for him. And the only problem with that is that he did it way too late. He should have done because at this point, Wendell and Dez were already like draining buckets. I thought that they actually probably could have pulled it away because I think at the point that Donathan unleashed the buoys, Wendell and Dez only had 2 baskets in out of like 9 or 10, however many they need. But then I forgot that Stephanie then had to swim all the way out there, grab the buoys, give them to Brendan, and then Brendan then had to make 9, all the while Wendell and Dez were increasing their lead. So I actually thought that a comeback was possible because Brendan's a PE coach, like a PE teacher in school. He probably has a lot of experience, teaching people how to shoot basketballs. And then he gets the ball and he doesn't even throw it like a baseball. He kind of just like, I don't know. It was some weird. I'm trying to do the motion. Obviously, you can't see this because this podcast is unfortunately audio only. But he does this weird thing where he kind of, it's like a baseball throw, but like if you were throwing it from like second to the shortstop, so you're not trying to get distance, and he misses. But by that time, Kobe Bryant over there, Wendell, is already draining like everyone. I mean, Dez scored I think just as many as he did, so I don't know why I'm attributing all this to Wendell, but they both ended up scoring and winning the challenge again. So Malolo is now down 2. And this is another unfortunate circumstance where Jacob makes some questionable decisions, which, again, unlike all of these decisions he's made outside of pouring the rice in his sock, I can see, I can justify as to why he would do it. Same with this one. So Jacob pretty much knows he's on the bottom. Also, I forgot to mention, after the immunity challenge, obviously they have to send another member to Ghost Island. Great choice by Navati by picking Donathan, because he's seen as physically weak, and they wanted more strong blood voted out on the other tribe, because he would then be immune, so they couldn't vote him out, especially when he did not perform. I mean, he performed what he needed to do. But I think the logic is that they'd probably keep James because he's ripped, and they probably would vote out Donathan because he kind of gave up on himself and he couldn't do it. So you send Donathan to Ghost Island. Real quick, Donathan on Ghost Island, nothing happens. He breaks an urn, he doesn't get anything, which is cool. That not every trip to Ghost Island nets you an advantage. You kind of have to be lucky. You have to be double lucky. You have to be lucky in the game, and you also have to be lucky picking your urn. So back on Malolo, they're deciding who to vote off, and James is taking it like a man. He's I messed up in the challenge, obviously. I take full responsibility, which is very respectable of him to do. And Jacob has this fake idol that everyone knows about, that they think is real, except for Brendan. And they're, obviously concerned about it. So Brendan and Michael are like, oh, we should probably throw some votes at James, just in case the idol actually is real. Which is a plan. It's definitely a plan. So they already know that at least 2 votes, probably, at least 2 or 3 votes are going to James. So Stephanie decides that she needs to work on Jacob to make sure he feels super comfortable. Which she does a fantastic job of doing, to the part where I, as a viewer, assumed that she was on his side. So Stephanie goes up to Jacob. They decide to hatch a counter plan against Brendan and the boys' trademark that they need to get out Michael, which I think is a valid target. I was a bit confused as to why they did not pick James as the target, especially because Stephanie knows. Well, okay, this is coming from the perspective that Stephanie's on Jacob's side. She's not, as we find out. But if Stephanie was on Jacob's side, she definitely had an opportunity to say to Jacob, we're voting James. They're already throwing votes at James. We can like use their votes against them, basically. Like, we can keep you around. Which I guess would work. The only problem is that Jacob then later says that he's kind of close to James, so I'm not sure he would be willing to do that. But I feel like if you're in an anyone but me situation, you might have to. But so Stephanie and Jacob want to pull in Jenna. They want to pull in James himself, and they want to pull in Laurel against Michael because they only need 5 majority to vote someone out because Donathan's gone, and also they voted out Gonzalez. So they try to do that. I don't know if they try. They kind of like talk about it. Jacob, like, it was obviously trying to get it to go. I don't think Stephanie and Jenna were necessarily going for it. I don't know if that's like the right word. They didn't seem like they were that, because they weren't really seen strategizing too heavily with like James and Laurel, the people they were trying to pull in. They kind of mentioned it, but they didn't go like, oh yeah, let's do that. Yeah, good idea. We'll never see it coming. But poor Jacob. Jacob basically completely encapsulates the theme of Ghost Island, where you have to either reverse the curse or the curse will come back to haunt you, because the curse of the legacy advantage absolutely comes back to haunt him because he tells Stephanie, one, that his idol isn't real, which is probably all the information she needs. If he told her that it was real, she might be more inclined to flip. Obviously, I don't know how the dynamics would have worked, but I feel like if he would have lied and said it was real and then didn't play it, or maybe he did play it, like made a little show at Tribals, like, this idol is not real actually, and threw it in the fire or whatever, Stephanie might have been more inclined to flip because she knew that he was going to play it, or she thought he was going to play it. But he tells her about the legacy advantage that he found on Ghost Island, which is exactly what Sierra did. Well, he tells Stephanie that he gave it to Morgan. So now Stephanie knows Morgan has it, and no one else does but her and Jacob. So any chance of her flipping at this point is basically gone, because she doesn't want, it's literally exactly what happened to Sierra in Game Changers. She told Sarah that she had the legacy advantage, and then Sarah's like, well, I want to be the only one who knows about this, so she cut Sierra off. Sierra gave it to her, and she was the only one who knew about it until she ended up having to play it. That's exactly what happened here. Jacob told Stephanie about it, so now the only people who know about the legacy advantage are the person who has it, obviously, who they can't vote out. She's on another team. So the only 2 people who know about it on their team are Jacob and Stephanie. So Stephanie's best interest at this point is to chop off the only other person who knows about it, so she's the only person who knows about it, and she's the only one who can use it to her advantage in the future. So at that point, I was pretty sure that Jacob was dead man walking, as much as I hated it, because I was really rooting for him to do well this entire time, up until his torch was snuffed. But he unfortunately made a couple blunders that ended up sealing his fate in the game, but the tribal was pretty straightforward. I don't remember anything noteworthy happening, except for Brendan's freaking awesome game sense coming in, where he pretty much figures out that there was, like, at one point a plot against him, just based on the way that Stephanie answered Jeff's questions, which I thought was very, very awesome. I don't know, it's just, it was a very subtle thing, but I think it really shows how aware Brendan is about his game, or about pretty much everyone's game around him. That's make me feel a lot better about having him as my winner pick. I felt kind of obligated to have him as my winner pick because we shared the same name, but I really think he has the chops to do it. I mean, I'll probably talk about this a bit later, and by a bit later, I mean a couple minutes, because we are slowly encroaching on an hour right now. So Jacob, unfortunately gets voted off. I think 2 votes get thrown at James. I don't remember exactly. 1 vote gets thrown at Michael, and that's Jacob's. I think 2 or 3 votes get thrown at James, and then the rest are all for... No, it can't be 3, because then it would be 4-4 tie, because there's only 8, because Donathan isn't there. So 2 votes get thrown at James, 1 vote gets thrown at Michael, the rest are all for Jacob. Jacob's sent home. He has a very cool... like Rob Sesternino in the not the Amazon All-Stars, when he gets voted out and he's like, like when the votes are reading, Jacob's like really distraught when he sees his name come up, which would be exactly how I would be. I'd be like, I would probably act in a similar manner if I saw my name like coming up on parchment when I didn't expect it to, and I like kind of had that realization I was going home. That's exactly how I would act, I think. And unfortunately, Jacob and his very, very entertaining arc is concluded with him getting voted out as the 19th place, second person voted out. And in terms of the first 2 boots, I genuinely did not expect either of them. I personally thought that Navati would be the ones who went to tribal at least once. I actually kind of predicted them going twice. I thought first boot would be someone along the lines of like Chelsea or Kellen, even though I freaking love Kellen. But I felt like her or Morgan or Chelsea or even Bradley would be better candidates for first boot. In terms of people on Malolo, I don't really know. I liked everyone way too much, but I guess it makes sense. I personally thought Gonzalez was going to go pretty deep, and I also thought Jacob was going to like have a David Wright-esque, like he has no business being this good at the game, but he is. But it turns out I was wrong about those predictions, unfortunately. So I can't wait to find out what other predictions I have absolutely wrong. But next time on Survivor, as they show in the preview, we have a tribe swap. I really, really, really hope it's not to 3 tribes, because that is a bit overdone at this point. We've had 3 tribes in every season since San Juan del Sur, I'm pretty sure. They've had a tribe swap to at least 3 tribes, or at least started with 3 tribes in some way. So I really hope that they don't swap from 2 to 3 tribes, because I feel like that's been done a bit too much. I hope they just swap to 2. It's a lot easier to keep track of who's on what team that way, especially as a viewer, in my opinion. I know some people like the 3 tribe swap, but I think at this point it's a bit overdone. They should probably take like a little break from it if they want to go back to it. Also, an interesting thing about the next time on Survivor, I don't know if this counts as I don't know, but Morgan is seen in confessional. I think she's on Ghost Island, so I'm assuming that Navati probably loses the reward challenge, because I really, really doubt that the person who gets sent to Ghost Island is always going to be immune, because that's how they did it for Exile sometimes, where the person sent would be immune from the vote, but that was only in certain situations, I think, because of the 2-hour premiere. That's how they decided to do it. But I'm pretty sure Navati is probably going to lose the next reward challenge, and then Morgan's going to get sent there, probably by Stephanie, because she knows that she has the legacy advantage. But that is the next time. I can't wait, honestly, for next episode. But my overall thoughts of this premiere was that this is going to be a freaking fantastic season. I already have very good feelings about this. I'm very easy to please when it comes to Survivor seasons. There are very, very few Survivor seasons that I dislike, especially recently. I know the subreddit will not agree with me on this, but I thought Heroes, Healers, Hustlers was a top 10 season of all time, and I genuinely enjoyed every episode of it. A little bit of a dip in the middle, but other than that, it was very, very enjoyable. I loved the beginning of Game Changers, not so much the end. The ending was one of the few seasons I did not enjoy very much. But other than that, I'm very easy to please when it comes to Survivor seasons, and I have a feeling that this season will blow that expectation out of the water and is going to be fantastic so far, especially because Navati is, aside from Dominic and Chris, really, we have a whole another dynamic set of characters to learn, especially on Malolo too. We have a few characters that we haven't seen too much from, and I'm excited to learn a bit more about them as they progress, especially because the first 2 boots here actually got fairly good amount of screen time. Jacob got a lot, and Gonzalez got a pretty fair amount as well. She got a few confessionals here and there, and she also had a big part in the challenge. This premiere went pretty good, I would say, overall. I'm very excited to see what happens next week. I will be doing this next week, I think. I know I had plans this week, but they ended up falling through. But I think next week I will have 3 people joining me. This will be one of the only times, or that will be one of the only times I have 3 people, because next week is spring break. So I will be home, and I'm going to watch it with the boys from back home. And there are a lot more of us than there are in college over here at Michigan State. So that is going to be it for today's episode. We are a bit over an hour right now, like just a couple 30 seconds over right now. So that's good time, I would say, to end it here. Thank you very much for watching this episode of From the Futon. If not From the Futon, this is a Survivor edition of From the Futon called The Futon Has Spoken. Please, if you'd like to follow us on our Twitter account, if you'd like to follow us on, I'm not sure where I'm even gonna end up posting this podcast. I don't know how much of a possibility iTunes is. I don't know how much of a possibility YouTube would be, considering it's just an audio-only file and I don't have a video to go along with this. And I might also post it on SoundCloud, because I know a lot of podcasts go up on SoundCloud as well. So I'll have to weigh my options. So anyway, main point of the story is I have no idea where this is going to be. Please check out the Twitter for The Futon Has Spoken. Hit us up with a follow. Tweet at us. Comment on whatever media this is posted to, about how you liked it, what you didn't like about it, what I should change for the future, because I'm always trying to improve my content, my projects. Also, you can visit thefutonhasspoken.wordpress.com. I will probably be posting some written blog posts about the premiere, or at least one that kind of is like a written version of what you heard here. Excuse me. Oh, I'm going to cut that out real quick. I just had a nice coughing attack. Also, you should check out me specifically on social media. My name is Brandon Przzy. My Twitter is at Przzyfied, Przzyfied. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, also of the same name. Whatever other media you can find of me, greatly appreciate it if you hit that up. Join my Discord server. I think there will be a link somewhere around there if you want to talk to me in real time. And that is all I have for this episode of The Futon Has Spoken, talking about the Ghost Island premiere of Survivor. I will see you next week.